Welcome, everyone. My name is Shirley, and I will be your moderator this evening. We have a really exciting presentation tonight, and I'm excited to welcome Dr. Titensor as our speaker this evening. Dr. Titensor has lectured and taught hands-on courses nationally and internationally on all topics related to digital dentistry, with a special emphasis on the CEREC workflow. He currently holds memberships in the Texas Dental Association, the American Dental Association, and Crown Council. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to go over some quick housekeeping. CE is not available for this webinar. If you have a question, we'd love to invite you to please type it into the Q&A box, and we will answer them live at the end of the presentation. With that, Dr. Titensor, welcome, and thank you for being with us tonight. I will pass it over to you now.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for joining me on this Wednesday night. I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your busy schedule. Hey, we've made it through half the week, right? So we can do this. Now, tonight we've condensed this webinar. I've done something similar, but we had a full hour. So we wanted to try something new where we condense it down to even a smaller time frame at 30 minutes. So not quite your TikTok video quite yet. Maybe we'll have to do that. Keep condensing it down and we can get it into a TikTok video. But for tonight, I want to just go over a CEREC Crown appointment, some of the tips and tricks that I've learned, having been using the CEREC now for 10 plus years. And they've really gotten this workflow down to where you can potentially even do a crown in an hour. So just briefly, again, since we don't have a ton of time, I just want to go over, I practice practicing general dentist in Flower Mound, Texas. It is just a town north of the DFW airport. We are kind of an emphasis on technology, full service. We place implants, endo, oral surgery, you name it. But again, as a general dentist, as you all know, if you're joining me as general dentist, our bread and butter is crowns, right? These permanent restorations. And so that's what I use my technology the most in the day-to-day practice. I have 2 prime scans, a Sirona CT. I have the prime print. So we've gone kind of fully digital. I like to kind of hint on this full ecosystem because I think it's so important for those of you who may be getting into this or may have some, but not all. When you can get the combination of the full ecosystem where you're scanning, you are manufacturing an office, whether it's printing or milling, it really opens up the door to some really cool possibilities, and it really transforms your practice. More than any technology, it'll change the way you practice and how you treat patients. They're even moving towards the cloud now. So all this technology is all going to be synced up on the cloud. If you've ever heard of DS Core, this is a little plug, something that I use it for. Real simple, but I've always wanted to show our cone beam to our patients on an iPad. With DS Core, all the information is uploaded on the internet. So you can pull up any patient's CT scan as long as you have an internet connection. Therefore, you can pull up an iPad. So this is Desiree. She's looking at her cone beam, just their chair side on an iPad. You can move through it. Do they necessarily know what they're looking at? Not all the time, but it's really neat for them to see that right in their palm of their hand. Just a few disclosures. No images. I didn't Photoshop any of these images. You'll notice I am a pretty big fanboy for Dentsply Sirona products. I just want to say thank you to them and Henry Schein. I don't get any cut if you end up buying their technology or anything like that, but they do pay me an honorarium to give a lecture like this, or if I go to any other place, they pay me for that time. But no cut on if you buy their products. I just love it, and I love to share it. I like the chat. If anybody's okay, I try to watch it during these webinars. I know this was one shorter, but I always like to see who owns a digital scanner. If you don't mind typing in the chat, Anybody have any of this DS equipment, prime scans, prime mill, prime print? I'd just be curious to see what kind of people are listening and what all you're involved with. So as you're going, if you have any questions or if you'd like to, feel free to share there in the webinar chat. And I'll try to address the questions and things as we go. So again, 30 minutes. We do got to move a little quicker today. All right. So where did this come from, this 1 hour crown? Now, as a CEREC doctor, I've been doing it for a while. I always heard in the rumor mill that a 1 hour crown was possible from start to finish. And I wanted to see if that was actually possible. And so I took I work out, I do some CrossFit. I took my workout timer and I went and timed a crown from start to finish to see if it could be done. And I did this for Death by Serrano World last year. And as I was preparing for it, I was doing the math. I place implants, I do veneers. If you can get your crown time down from start to finish in under an hour. Now, granted, as I'll go into some more details, does that happen every time? No, it depends on the patient. But just to know that it's possible, it's something that you can work towards and push yourself towards. But if you could get that down under an hour, I strongly believe it rivals the production value of implants or veneers any day, minus all the added risks, right? Implants, veneers a lot of times come with higher lab costs, higher risks, more CE, higher expectations from the patients. So doing this 1 hour crown has become one of the most productive things we can do in my office. So, but yeah, can it be done? In fact, last year, if anybody remember, Top Gun Maverick came out, and I thought one of the pivotal scenes was, everybody thought it was impossible to do that run, and they're all down and depressed, and they're sitting in the training room, and all of a sudden they see Tom Cruise and his jet demonstrating banking left to right, and he accomplished the mission and under the amount of time. So that kind of inspired me to do this 1 hour crown. So what I did, and I'm going to just see if I can switch over real quick, just to prove that it's not fake, I even videotaped it, okay? So if anybody can't see, this should be the video, just the start. You see I have my timer, my willing patient here, Sarah, and the timer was 60 minutes. Here goes our countdown. And I'm talking it's start to finish in under an hour, X-ray, check the bite, everything out. So here we go. I guess I could have started in my seat. I would have even stayed some more seconds. We even get the blood pressure, right? We didn't cut any corners. This is numbing. This is everything from start to finish. So we can fast forward and it shows us scanning, prepping, doing all those things. And what I want to do here for the next 20 minutes or so, go over some of the tips and tricks that you can do in your office and how we're able to get some of these, shave a few seconds here, a few seconds there, how you can use your time wisely during a crown appointment in order to get that done in under an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch back to those slides. All right. So I timed it. In fact, after it was all said and done, I went back to my video and I even broke it down in the timings. And so I approximately for your case preparation, so the time they sit in your chair until you're drilling on their tooth, I've had about 7 minutes. Okay, you got to wait for them to numb, blood pressure, all of that. That's a very crucial time that you can use wisely in preparing, whether you're getting the shade, you're putting the block in, getting scans of the patient's mouth. There's a lot of things you can do in that 7 minutes while they're numbing to further that process along. 15 minutes, I do say if anything you're going to slow down, take your time on is the preparation, the tooth prep. If you give a CEREC really good prep and a really good scan, it can produce amazing results. Where I think people have trouble is if maybe they rush the prep, they don't define the margins well, it's not a smooth margins, they don't get enough clearance. That's another big issue. So I'm thinking taking the time on the prep can make all the difference in the long run. So I said in my video, I took 15 minutes on the preparation, and that's including scanning, and I'm sitting down to design. So once it's scanned and you're looking at the design, 3 minutes, all right? From the time I sit down to design the ground to the time it's in the mill, only 3 minutes. That should not take long. The technology has gotten so good that your initial proposals, the algorithms that it produces with the crown, it comes out really, really good. There's only a few steps and things I do when I'm designing that crown that I'll make some adjustments to, but the technology has really come a long way in those initial proposals. So it does not take a lot of time or a computer engineering degree to sit in front of a CEREC and design a crown anymore. Especially if you get a good prep and enough clearance. Now, this material I did with the zirconia MTL. So the processing time from the time it's milling in oven, I always say from start to finish is about 30 minutes. So knowing that if you want to get your crown done in under an hour, you need to get that design to the mill in that first 30 minutes. And because these things mill so nice, the margins fit so good. The accuracy is amazing. The seat is so smooth. Very, very little adjustments, if any. We've really honed in this to where my goal is to just mill the crown, fire it, try it in, of course, just to make sure. But I'd say 90% plus of the time I'm doing no adjustments as far as interproximal and bite. Took some time to make sure, just calibrating myself and getting a good prep to get there, but the seat should be 5 minutes or less. All right, so now each of those steps I kind of break down with a few tips. So the first 3 minutes before you're getting their blood pressure, we use a prescription numbing gel. I don't know if anybody used that. It's just real strong. Less patients complain about the injection. We use for lower IA blocks, I use an buffering agent called Onset. I don't know if anybody used that. It just helps the anesthetic kick in quicker, we found, on a lower block. So we get more profound numbness and stays there longer on those lower molars, which a lot of times we're doing these zirconia crowns on. So during that initial, 3 minutes to 7 minutes and a half, that first 5 minutes while they're numbing, this is where, one, the assistants check, make sure we have a pre-op x-ray. 2, we're getting shade selection. And once we have the shade, you want to go and put your block in the mill. It can run the touch process. So all of that is ready to go. So as soon as you design your crown and hit start, it immediately begins milling. So use that time. Don't wait until you fully design the crown and then decide to go put the block in. You just lost 2-3 minutes just right there. So while they're numbing, make sure you get the block in and don't forget to hit the start the touch process. So that block is ready to go. Also, you can go in, and the assistants do all this, by the way, go in and take the pre-op scans. So they'll scan the upper, lower, and the bite. Sometimes I'll use the initial proposal, the tooth that's there, as a biocopy. It gives me that option. And then what they'll do is cut out the tooth that I'm preparing. So that way, when I go to scan the preparation, all I have to do is scan the one tooth. It makes that scan really quick. Again, so this case I'm using the CEREC MTL zirconia. Really, really nice block. I find that the fit and the mill process, it's really smooth. I think Intense Place Verona knocked it out of the park with this one. I feel like they really spent the time honing it in because I have very, very little issues with this block. All right, so preparation. Again, I'd say the most common mistake that I see as I'm training new dentists and things on how to use the CEREC is not enough occlusal reduction. Hiatus causes a fracture Just we use a burr like this here on the right side. It is a depth burr. It has a non-end cutting portion. So I just bury that in the tooth, make a few swipes, and it's all ready to go as far as my occlusal reduction. So those are really nice to use in posterior molars, especially when you can't see, you can't really tell how much reduction you have a lot of times. Another thing to watch out for when milling on is make sure you do that two-plane axial reduction. You want real nice rounded occlusal cusps. You want to avoid a process called overmilling. So this is something that kind of demonstrated with this slide. If you have a sharp buccal cusp like you see here on the left picture, a lot of times the mill is trained to overmill an area like that to make sure that crown will fully seat, therefore leaving a gap in between where that restoration is and the tooth. So you can see that burr comes up through there and it can overmill that area. So you just want to make sure you round those occlusal cusps to avoid any thinness in those crowns. As far as your margin design, what's really nice with zirconia, once it's centered, it is so strong. You can even have a knife edge margin with zirconia once centered, but that's the key, is during the milling process, that block, if anybody's felt that, it's pretty soft, pretty chalky. A knife edge margin has a really high chance of chipping during the mill process. So what I'll do if I want a thinner, like light chamfer or thinner margin, is I'll bulk that up just for the mill process. And then once it's centered, I can come in with a rubber wheel and just polish that margin back down. And again, as thin as a knife edge. You just got to make sure it survives the mill. It's just whenever you're milling, you got to think about what's going to survive the mill. I always finish my margins with a red stripe barrel diamond to make sure everything is nice and smooth. You want real nice, smooth margins. You still want to do gingival retraction. You need to show the prime scan the difference between tooth and soft tissue. I'm sure it'll get to the point where, AI, you'll do like some extraoral crazy scan and it scans everything. But you still need to differentiate and get some retraction. Whether it's retraction cord, I use the double cord technique. I place a 00 cord first and then a 1 over the top. Some people use retraction paste, lasers. There's all sorts of different options. Just make sure you're getting a really nice margin. So here's an example of a case that I did where I was doing 3 inlays and onlays in a row, but this is showing the 2 cord technique. So this is with my second core. I'll put the first 00 cord in and then a second size 1 cord over the top. And then right before I'm about to scan the case, we pull that top cord so you can see a really nice, good separation between gingiva and tooth structure. All right, so we've prepared the tooth. Now we're going to scan the prep. This, I put less than 1 minute, all right? So if assistant came in and cut that tooth out, this should be almost like a 15-second scan. I always like to position my prime scan behind the patient. That way I can see the screen as I'm scanning to make sure I know I'm fully getting everything in that scan. I can easily touch the touch screen and rotate it around. If it's positioned on the other side or behind you, you have to make turns. It's hard to see if you're even getting it. So make sure you position that prime scan right behind the patient like you see here. All right, so crown design. Now in the 30-minute webinar series, this is one area I have to put on the chopping block, but a lot of times I like to demo some of these things. But one thing I've noticed is people take too long on the crown designs. If you're spending more than 5 minutes just sitting here with all the different tools on the prime scan and designing it, trying to make it look better, after 5 minutes, it just gets worse than that initial proposal. So I always say challenge yourself, try to set timers, get it to where you're getting it really nice. And especially if you're a newer user, make sure you have good interproximal contacts. Make sure it's not way out of occlusion, and then get it milled. You can always come back in with a handpiece and contour it when it's in your hand. As that learning curve is just starting out, it's going to be a lot easier to make those kind of tweaks with a handpiece and a burr in your lab than sometimes on the computer. But as you get better with the computer, you'll find more and more you're getting all the proposal done just there on the computer. Just make sure you really want to challenge yourself. Don't take too long on those designs. On this case, my actual design time was 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So from the time I scanned the patient until I got that to the mill is 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So it can be done. I always do a light green interproximal contact. I like a nice snap, but not too tight. And one other tip is make sure your spacer for zirconia is set to 90. And that way it has a little less wiggle room. I'm only traditionally cementing these with just a luting cement. And so I don't need as large a spacer as, say, like an Emax. So I drop that spacer down to 90, and you'll find that fit is just a little more snug, a little more nice. So I set that to 90. All right, so how are we doing in our crown? Really, it's because of the prime mill and their super fast mode. If anybody's seen this, it's pretty fun to watch. It has 4 burrs acting it simultaneously, and it can mill out a crown in under 5 minutes. So this case exactly was from minute 26:45 to minute 32:30. So it was under 6 minutes to mill this posterior molar. And I started milling at the 26-minute mark. So again, if you want to make that hour crown mark, you got to get that in the mill under 30 minutes. And so I got it in at 26:45. The prime mill is a dry mill. So that's crucial when you're doing zirconia. You want to mill things dry, because if it's wet, when it goes to the oven, you have to run it through a drying cycle, which takes an extra 10 to 15 minutes. So it really hurts your time there. Have some sort of organization system. We have a cabinetry. This prime mill sits right in our hallway. I know people think, oh, that's loud, it's disturbing the patients. I love it in my hallway. I love showing it off. I love letting patients stand up and let them watch their crown being milled. It is like voodoo to them. It's one of the coolest things to show off in your practice. So I have a right smack in my hallway so everybody can see. We have this system of cabinetry where we keep our blocks in different shades organized. And then the vacuum unit for these dry mills, something that people may not know. In order to keep the chamber clean and vacuum, you can buy a separate hose attachment that you just snap right onto the vacuum unit, and you can vacuum out the chamber in between mills just to keep your mill clean. All right, so it's out of the mill, and I want to get it to the oven as fast as possible. This I took about 3 minutes. I use some compressed air to dust off the remaining dust in there. I use a pointed carbide, if you see in this picture, or a diamond. I've used both. I used this to cut off just halfway through the sprue, enough to where I hold it in between my hand and do a little wiggle and it pops off. Just want to make sure that doesn't drop, because it is vulnerable in this softer phase. So, in the words of my assistant, don't break it. And she always tells me how I'm like, you're jinxing me. But I use that same burr to smooth off the sprue to carve in some additional anatomy. The milling unit, the milling crowns, they come out nice. I think they can come out even better if you just spend a little bit of time carving in some additional anatomy to make these look like they're coming straight from your high-end lab. It doesn't take much, but it goes a long way. And now we put it in the Speedfire oven. This number 30 or number 19 took 19 minutes, 58 seconds. So that's from start to finish. Now you have 19 minutes to use wisely, right? You can go in, that's my time. My hygienists know that don't come get me for exams unless there's something milling. While things are milled and the assistants can get the crown in the oven, that's a great time to go do your hygiene checks. My front desk knows in that time, the first about 30 minutes of a CEREC appointment, I'm with the patient. But in between, they can schedule another patient in the next room. They can put in for some fillings for a post-op. For the next crown that I'm starting, you can kind of alternate rooms and use that time wisely. And it comes natural as you get the technology and you start working with that. A lot of times I just use it to relax. We get very little of that, right, as dentists. So having a nice 19 minutes while the crown's being fired is my zen time sometimes. Once it's out of the oven, you polish it. I use this polishing kit. You can go through the different coarse, medium, and fine to get a really nice polish. You'll find just with a little bit of Schein and a polishing burr, it polishes up real quick. I mean, this is a 30-second step. Total time for this processing, even to let it cool off and polish, was 3 minutes. And now we're seating. All right. In our webinar, we're almost at the 30-minute mark. So here we almost made it through our 1 hour crown appointment in the 30 minutes webinar. So with seating, I always try it in. I check my interproximal contacts. This is a crucial step. If you've all gone well and you've really gave it a good prep and you followed these tips, this should fit perfect. Very, very few times do I ever have to adjust these. I very, very seldom adjust the interproximal contacts. I very seldom adjust the occlusion. Anytime you take a burr or zirconia, there's a chance of introducing microfractures. So you really want to get this down to where these seat, and I tell you, patients love it. They've been through the tap, tap, tap and the multiple bite adjustments and the crown being sent back to the lab and all this. When you can deliver this in 1 hour and one appointment, you have sold that patient for life. That is a service that is good for both you and the patient and for their tooth. They can leave with a permanent tooth. I always finish with the final bite wing x-ray to check, make sure the cement is all clean, and check my, make sure it's all the way seated down. Final restoration, she wanted to go a little lighter. I could have taken the buccal margin down and take a little bit more, but it's on the lower. She didn't see it. And she is super happy with it. I did want to show just a few things, just to show how accurate, how nice these margins. Here's a heroic situation, huge deep decay on the distal. Patient really wanted to try to save the tooth, buy him more time. We did an MTL zirconia. Even at that deep of margin, you can get a really nice fit on these. The prime scan can scan at up to 20 millimeters of depth. So similar case here, another deep margin on the distal, but you see the fit of these things are just so nice. And I love that they fit great and that they're super strong. I know this is a restoration that's going to give this patient and myself very little headache, and they'd be real happy moving forward in the future. So it has become my go-to for first and second molars. It is not as aesthetic as an Emax, so anything premolars forward, I still do either Emax or Tessera. It's an all porcelain lithium disilicate material. But for that strength, you can't go wrong with that zirconia. All right, so we made it 30 minutes, I promised. This is just, if you guys want to scan, I do have an Instagram. If you want to follow me there, I like to post cases and tips and tricks. I'm going to try to post more CEREC little gems on there for people that can get help. But again, thank you for being with me tonight on this 30-minute webinar. I think we do have time and open it up if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Titensor. Yes, very good with the timing. And we'd love to invite our participants this evening to enter their questions, thoughts, or comments into the Q&A chat. And we do have one that's come in from Dr. Syed. I'm so sorry, I got caught up at work oh, okay. Just joined 2 minutes away. Yes, Dr. Syed, we will be sending out the recording of tonight's presentation over the coming week, so you will be able to get that. But we'd love to invite anyone else to any questions that you have for Dr. Titensor. We're here to answer them.
They normally what they've done in the past is they will format this for YouTube, and they'll post it on their Henry Schein YouTube channel, so that you can refer back to it at any time.
That's
hopefully
right.
Hopefully that extraction wasn't too bad, Doc.
Are there any questions, Dr. Titensor, that you usually get? We do have a comment here very quickly from Dr. Nix. Thank you very much. Great information. Thank you, Dr. Nix.
Thank you, doctor. Yeah. Some common questions, a lot of people ask, like, do I need to have, like, there's other technologies on the market, and I totally understand it. In fact, I'm in Dallas. We have one of CEREC's key competitor here. I don't want to name names. I just have found that as far as ease of use, I can almost compare it to like an Apple product. It's really easy to pick up. My assistants can get their hands on with minimal training. It's very intuitive, and I'm a big fan of consistent results. And I found that this workflow that they put together with the start to finish MTL zirconia, I just haven't found anything that could beat it. It's been really successful in my practice.
Thank you, Dr. Titensor. We did get a comment here from Dr. Syed. Thank you. It was pretty bad, I guess, referring to the extraction, but we got it out. I'll definitely watch the recording. I'm interested in buying a scanner for my practice. Do you have any recommendations on how I could get one for relatively cheap? I have faith in the CEREC ones and wouldn't mind using them, but for me, finance is the biggest concern and why I plan to attend the webinar.
I'm glad you brought that up, Doctor. The financing. Now each individual's motivations on what they spend their money on, I know that's to each their own. I found that I get it. A prime scan is a more expensive scanner compared to the others on the market. I mean, you can pick up one fairly inexpensive that you can just plug into a laptop now for pretty cheap. And really, it's a decent scan. What you're going to miss out on with going with a different, less expensive scanner is the workflow. Are you going to be able to do 1 hour crown? No, you won't be able to. Are you going to have it seamlessly integrated and headache free? No, you're going to have to do some hoops. You're going to have to jump through those. There's going to be things that may come to a breaking point where it ends up you buy that technology, you end up not even using it. I've heard stories like that where someone invests in some technology and they ended up it sits on a counter because of just certain steps. It's hard to work with. So I know it's a little more expensive up front, but the numbers are there. If getting things where you don't have to do a second appointment for a crown seat, you're saving the money on your lab bills by taking things in-house. And I don't even think it's that. I think the value comes from happy patients. They love the start to finish crown where they don't have to come back and second shot, not have to mess with the temporary. Your timing is so valuable, doctor. If you have a whole day where you're just seeding crowns, it's a very unproductive day. With investing in something like CEREC, yes, a little more expensive up front, but it quickly pays off. And not only does it pay off, but your headaches and your stress levels can go down, which to me is invaluable. So that's a good question, though.
Thank you, Dr. Titensor. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. What was the anesthesia you used to make lower block happen quicker?
Yeah, so that was a product from On Pharma called Onset. I can go back to that slide. It's called Onset. If you just Google search Onset by On Pharma, I'll type it in the messaging. I use it for all my lower blocks. I found it's a lot more consistent getting profound anesthesia, and sometimes lower blocks, if it can take forever to numb, and it's frustrating, where I got a lot more success with this. So Onset.
Thank you. I see it right there. Thank you. This question is from Dr. Chris Nielsen. How do you go about sandblasting or not? Do you use a Z prime?
Great question, Chris. So I don't sandblast these. Now, I know you're going to hear different things from different doctors. I have seen studies on both, whether it adds some value to the adhesion. Do you have less, it's not necessarily bonding with zirconia, but do you have less crowns coming off? To me, what I found, I've had consistent crowns with this zirconia. I make sure I have enough mechanical retention. I need at least a 4 millimeter axial wall. If I have that, I just luting cement. It's easy. It has the glass ionomer, which has a little bit of that fluoride releasing for recurrent caries. If I'm going to be less than 4 millimeters and I'm worried about retention, I'll do an Emax and bond it in those kind of cases. So again, I know some people try to bond with their zirconia sandblasting, and their studies show that helps. But me personally, I have not had to do that, and we do not get any crowns coming off.
Thank you, Doctor. This next question from a new grad, Dr. Tanweer Syed. What is the range in price I should be looking at?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the prime scan, now I'm not a sales rep, so they always have the next deal, around the corner or whatever. I know Dentsply Sirona World is coming up here next month, and they usually have the best prices there. It'd probably be best just get with your rep. It depends if you're going to buy the prime scan and the prime mill together. You get different bundle deals. They have really motivating, 0% financing, I know, in a lot of places. And so I wish I could tell you, I just don't want to tell you the wrong answer. I know, I'd say I'd go to Dentsply Sirona World or have your rep come in and tell you. Follow me on Instagram. If they give you a number, message me, and I'll make sure you're getting a good price, and I can compare it to what my guy would do here, and that sort of thing. Maybe I can say, hey, he watched this webinar, he needs a good discount.
Fair enough. Thank you, Dr. Titensor. If there are any other questions, again, we'd love for you to put them in. We could take a few more moments to wait. And in the meantime, Dr. Titensor, any other questions that you can think of that folks...
I think again, 30 minutes, I know it's fast and furious, but hopefully my goal is just to help people along their way, along their journey. Hopefully it's inspired some of you to get into it. If you're already doing it, hopefully you found some gems that help. It's mentors that I've learned little tips and tricks from that's got me here. I couldn't practice without it. I know sometimes it's scary to invest in something like this, but it's every time I've invested in good technology I've never looked back. So it'll only make your practice better. It'll only make yourself more productive. It'll only make your patients happier. I couldn't, rave about it more. So come to Dentsply Sirona World. I'm teaching 10 ways my the digital technology has saved me time, money, and stress, because I think that's the biggest thing I found is, it makes really cool restorations. It helps me place implants, but ultimately I feel like it's saved me stress, time, and money. And so, if you want to see more, come to Display Smart World next month.
Very cool. Thank you, Doctor. And with that, one last comment. Well, we do have another question that came in. First off, thank you. Appreciate the feedback from Dr. Syed. This is from Dr. Terry Hagan. What about training after buying it, integrating it? Does the rep help with that?
Absolutely. Okay, so this is a Henry Schein sponsored webinar. Henry Schein has an amazing onboarding program. They, one, you have a dedicated person that helps you with the onboarding. Two, and that's in your actual office. They come to your office to do that. Two, you get what's called level 1 training. That's actually what I do. So I've taught the level 1 course with Henry Schein for like 6-7 years now, and it's 1 to 2 days depending on your location, where we go from start to finish hands-on on how to make this possible in your office. And but it's like anything, there is some learning to do, some learning curve, but you'll find a great resource in CDocs, which is a whole group of doctors who all use the CEREC, where you can post cases and questions. There's a lot. It's a great community, and there's a lot of support.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, that is all the time we have for this evening. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Titensor, for a wonderful presentation tonight. And thank you all for joining us this evening. As I said before, we did record tonight's webinar, and we will be emailing the recording out sometime in the next week. We'd love to get your feedback also via our survey that will pop up on your screen shortly. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.